UFC 280 crowns a new lightweight champion, Islam Makhachev, like there was never any doubt. And I'm going to go for a pretty bold statement here. Rewriting the division, since the moment Khabib retired, this has been the best guy in the division. He was uncrowned until now. They just made it official. I don't care if he had any top five wins or not. That's why this win was kind of so divisive in the MMA world. The people who have watched Olivera just triumph over so much chaos in the octagon, especially through the last three fights. He had this feeling of invincibility against all these established top guys. The UFC always has its divisions in this way where it's very hard to climb to the top, but once you get there, you end up even coming off a loss, you fight other guys at the top. Uh, that's why you see like Olivera beat Chandler, Chandler fights Gaethje, Gaethje beats Chandler, then Gaethje fights Olivera, and then like Poirier in there as well. And now Poirier and Chandler are going to fight. So watching Olivera come through all these guys who have these like 1 through 5 numbers on their name, someone like Islam who hadn't fought anyone in the top five, some people were like, he's not at that elite level. He hasn't fought anyone there. And then other people who have been watching this guy for 7 years know he's been at that level for a long time. And it's just no one with those numbers next to his name would fight him. But this was, even with those expectations, a surprising level of dominance. Like Oliveira was supposed to be this wild card who was kind of not going to fear anything and able to like hang tight and still be dangerous while being threatened. 10 seconds into the fight, Islam clocks him with the right hand straight through. Charles is down, and through the rest of the fight, you don't see that stand up that he brought against Poirier, against Gaethje, against guys who on paper are more of a knockout threat on the feet. I thought it was really interesting. Charles pulled guard a minute later into the fight because if you're gonna get an arm bar, some sort of leg submission, your best chance is while it's dry. So why not get a feel for the grappling while you have your best chance for a submission, and then you can game plan the rest of the fight off of how that goes. He gets one triangle attempt up that looks interesting for 10, 20 seconds, but Makhachev, of course, stayed patient, didn't do anything crazy, found his moment to slip out before it got locked in too tight. The rest of that grappling exchange, he stays very much in the middle, keeps both hands tight to the center, and Olivera eventually finds nothing, so scrambles up to his feet. He doesn't try and initiate the ground again. He's more careful on the feet because Makhachev is coming forward, and when Olivera gets too close, he's tying him up in a clinch, finding a trip, pushing him against the cage, finding the angle to pick him up and take him down, and just staying very safe, grinding on him. And it just suffocated Oliveira. Like I said, none of that wildness, very reserved. He just wasn't landing those kind of, yeah, he puts his head straight up, leaves his chin exposed, but he gets in there with those hooks, and his range and his timing is so good that he's able to get away with those difficult or those vulnerabilities he's exposing himself to. And then pretty early in the second round, he finally does open up. I guess he did open up the first strike of the fight with kind of like a switch leg kick. But then the second wild kick he throws, a kind of double flying knee attempt. Makhachev just kind of parries the chest away. And then as Oliveira lands, he lands this clean hook that drops him again. And Oliveira, he's like wired himself. When he drops, he goes down, he has his guard open, and he invites the guy to the floor. And every time he got dropped against Gaethje, against Poirier, not against Chandler, that one was a little different, but he assumed that position, and Poirier and Gaethje watched and thought about it and waited, and Oliveira got his bearings and got back up. The fight continued. And that's where so much of that invincibility he had going for him came from. But this time, Makhachev drops him and he gets right on top of him into half guard, locks up an arm triangle, and he locks it up so tight, like before Oliveira even has his bearings, that all he has to do is slip his legs out to mount, and the pressure gets Oliveira tapping in 5 seconds. So submitting like a Brazilian jiu-jitsu legend, the guy with the most finishes, the most submissions in UFC history, in the second round, taking no damage on the feet. One submission attempt for Olivera that Makhachev handles perfectly. Like a fight against a guy who made every fight a sloppy, both guys get hurt, wild brawl where he mastered the chaos and came on top. Makhachev passes the test with flying colors, not a scratch on him. As I said at the outset, this guy has been and is the number one lightweight in the world. And there was talk this week going in of like, oh, if Charles wins, I think that trumps Khabib's legacy, which had a lot of merit and was kind of not something I thought we'd be thinking about for 5 to 10 years. And the reason that was happening is Khabib's title reign was so short. Looking at some of the other relative reigns we've seen in the UFC, that even with that level of dominance, once someone starts passing that reign, people are going to start to ask questions. So it's a little different. Who knows how people will talk about Islam versus Khabib, but we have the opportunity for that at a much, much, much more extended version. And I'm so excited for it in this division. It seems like it's going to be Volkanovski next, which is a bit of a shame for Dariush, as I'll touch on briefly. But that's still going to be a hell of a fight. Makhachev, I think, is going to be a massive favorite. And I'm hoping to see it open up a really exciting, scary time in the lightweight division, because this is a test that I still, like 6 years later, and I still don't know what the answer is other than a lucky shot. And these guys, a Makhachev, a Khabib, even an Usman, when they're climbing, no one wants to fight them. Once they're at the top, that's when the whole division gets to the blackboard and starts planning, how can we beat this guy? So I'm so excited for that chapter in the UFC.